All right, I'm sure you guys are asking yourselves, what are we going to be doing today in 3-3? Well, we're going to be solving quadratics by completing the square. So let's just start by solving this one. X squared minus 16x plus 64 equals 100. And we're going to solve this one using square roots. And this works out really nicely because when we factor it, it's a perfect square trinomial. X minus 8 times x minus 8. And we're going to write that as x minus 8 quantity squared, which that makes taking the square root really easy. X minus 8 equals plus or minus 10. Add 8 to both sides. And you're going to have to do this twice because there's actually two problems here, 8 plus 10 and 8 minus 10. So your two solutions are 18 and negative 2. All right, why don't you take a second and pause? All of these can be solved using the square root. I will put the answers up shortly. That one, when you factor it, x plus 2, quantity squared equals 36. When you factor this one, x minus 3, quantity squared equals 1. Factor this one, x minus 11, quantity squared equals 81. Okay, however, a lot of times you're going to have a problem and it's not going to have a perfect square. You're going to have to figure out how to make it a perfect square. And the key here is b over 2 quantity squared. What b is the number that's in front of the x. Adding that to any quadratic will create a perfect square trinomial. And I'm sure you guys are asking, well, how can that be? Well, let's take a look at this visual. You've got a polynomial here, x squared plus bx. If you took that bx and you divide it by 2, and you took and moved it down into that empty square, we don't have quite a square, but if you b over 2 times b over 2, you get b over 2 quantity squared. That's where it comes from. So we want to find the value of c that makes x squared plus 14x plus c a perfect square trinomial. Piece of cake. The coefficient of your linear term is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Square it, 49. So you have x squared. Divide that linear term, the 14x, and 2, and you get 7x, 7x. 7 times 7, 49. All right, take a second, pause, try and create perfect square trinomials on your own, and then we will check your answers. The only one that looks a little, I think, a little funny is number 6, because it's always kind of a pain when you have an odd number in front of the x, because you will get a fraction. But don't let fractions scare you. They're really not that big of a deal. All right, so now the fun part comes. We're going to solve by completing the square. So start with the equation, and you're going to subtract 7 over. Because so you only want the x squared and the minus 10x. You want your constant on the right-hand side. Now we're going to have to form a perfect square trinomial. Negative 10 divided by 2 squared is going to be 25. Because we want to keep everything even, add 25 to both sides. Factor it. X minus 5 quantity squared equals 18. Take that square root. X minus 5 equals plus or minus radical 18. Add 5 to both sides. And let's simplify that radical sign to 3 radical 2. Because 18 is 9 times 2. The square root of 9 is 3. And those are your answers. And if you're ever in doubt, convert it into a decimal using your calculator, plug it back into the original equation, and see how it works. That's the one nice thing about algebra is usually you can take those answers and plug them in. All right, let's do another one. This one is tricky because the coefficient a is not 1. So you must first divide each side by a. Pain in the neck. But we can handle it. And it works out because everything comes out nice and neat. So you've got x squared plus 4x plus 5. Now we can handle that. Subtract 5. Figure out what you're going to have to add to both sides to make that a perfect square trinomial, which is 4. Factor it. X plus 2 quantity squared equals -1. Ooh, I'm starting to think we might have a complex number. Subtract 2. Take that -1. That's really just I. -2 plus or minus I. All right. This is the you try part of the notes. Take a second and try these out on your own. I will put the answers up in a second. But I would definitely pause. All right. On this one, we've got y equals x squared minus 12x plus 18. And we want to write that in vertex form. And hopefully you remember vertex form is y equals a x minus h quantity squared plus k, where h and k are the vertex. You should definitely remember that. Oops, wrong button again. So what you're going to have to do is we're going to have to find out what that vertex is. We've done that before. But we're doing it a slightly different way. We're going to do it by completing the square. So we've got x squared plus 12x. And I'm going to look at that and go, gosh, what am I going to have to do to complete the square? 12 divided by 2 squared, -12 divided by 2 squared. It's going to give me 36. I need to add 36 to both sides. Factor x squared minus 12x plus 36. And then subtract 36 from both sides. Solve for y. So in vertex form, that's what it is. All right. Again, this is a you try section. Go ahead and pause. Try them out. If you feel like you need more examples, again, you can always get onto the Big Ideas website, and there are more videos. All right, word problems, everybody's favorite. We've got the height, it's in feet, of a baseball t seconds after it is hit can be modeled by the function -16t squared plus 96t plus 3. Find the maximum height and how long does it take to hit the ground. There's a couple different ways that we can go about doing it. Understand the problem. If you need to, draw a picture. Picture that baseball going up in the air and coming back down. Always ask yourself, what are they asking? So we have to find the maximum, which is a vertex. So I'm going to be thinking vertex form. So there's our problem. I can factor out a -16. So now I'm going to figure out what do I need to add to make that a perfect square trinomial. -6 divided by 2 is -3. Square it, and that's 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. But be careful on this side, because if you were to distribute that, that's actually negative 16 times 9. So that's what I need to add to the other side. So it looks like your vertex is 3, 147. To find the zeros of the function, substitute 0 in for y. Add 140 or subtract 147 from both sides. Divide by negative 16. Take the square root. And then add 3. You're going to get 2 answers, but you're going to reject the one that gives you a negative because we can't have negative time. So it's right around 6 seconds. And always ask yourself, does that answer make sense? Is it reasonable? Is there a way that I can check myself? Yeah, I would probably put that equation into Desmos and see how I did. All right, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed.